All right, you guys. Well, thank you for popping on for week 3 of our bootcamp series. Week 1, for anyone who's listening to this in recorded time, was all about learning how to share your 30-second story. And we did 2 templates there. Last week, and I apologize, we had some recording issues, was on You Share, They Share. So you got half of that. And then poor Laura got cut off at the end. This week is on social media. We have one more week next week to kind of wrap up this series. And so I kind of just want to open up a little bit here by telling you guys, for who's on today and who listens to this in recorded time. First of all, I'm not a social media expert, okay? I'm not someone who has like a ClickFunnels sales program online, and there's a lot of experts out there that you can learn from. However, I don't think you have to be an expert to learn the basics and to have a platform to build your network marketing business. And so with my disclaimer, I'm going to just try and give you some tips that we've seen to be successful, not only for myself, but for, thousands and thousands and thousands of people across the team, across the company, and across the industry. I also want to say, so my first little disclaimer, where it's like, I'm not an expert, I'm not claiming to be like Shailene Johnson or something like that, is just like anything, like you have to put in the work, right? And so like before I joined Isagenix, I had never made a flyer. I had never like done something where I had to do recognition. And when I was a nutritionist, I sometimes would post before and after pictures, or I often posted articles, like information articles, things of that sort. And all of a sudden, I remember like creating my first consultant, and Janny, my mentor, was like, oh my gosh, you need to recognize her and add her in glitters. And I was like, what, huh? Like, who's glitters? And how do I make a flyer? And what are you talking about? And there is a learning curve. And so if there are people, if it's you or people listening to this in recorded time, that are overwhelmed because you're like, what's Canva? What's WordArt? What's Lensa? What's Lightroom? Like, what are you even talking about? That it's one of those things that you get to choose your hard. So we can either say like, okay, this isn't too hard, I'm not, fit for it, or say, okay, I am tough, I can do tough things, and I'm going to put in a little bit of time, and I'm going to learn how to do this. And so both Laura and I have learned skills around social media because we got on a webinar, we listened to a podcast, we practiced with it. Part of it is just like trial and error, and being like, ooh, that's a bad filter, don't do that one. Or like, ooh, I look like I just did Botox, like I want that filter, and being able to kind of to play around with it and just be willing to kind of put in that time and effort. Just a few 3 things that I was going to give you in terms of like quality of post before we really get into the content. I wanted to talk to you about filters, about before and afters and how they should look, and then the difference of your product versus business building posts. And then we'll really get into kind of the nitty gritty of this stuff. So when it comes to filters, like, I am a fan of them. I do think that in today's day and age, when there's so many notifications that we get on so many platforms, you have to stop the scroll. In the same way, when you're like, what makes you stop? Like, what is it on someone else's profile that actually gets your attention? We want to do the same thing. And so we don't want to be over filtered where you're unrecognizable, right? Like, you don't want to give yourself like a 50-pound weight loss and a facelift and, cat ears and everything else, that when they're like, oh, that's you. But it's worth spending 30 seconds to lighten a photo, to make sure the color scheme is similar, right? That it's cleaned up, like the borders around it, there's not random things in the background, so that when people are going through, it's aesthetically appealing, okay? So I'm not gonna do this whole training on filters, but I wanna put it out there that it's important, and that's an area that you guys can all get better at, myself included. The second is with before and afters. We read left to right. So we always want the before picture on the left and the after on the right. Sometimes we don't do that and we rush, and then it's like you see the weight loss transformation and it's on the other order. It doesn't look as good. And again, just making sure it's like cleaned up, whether there's a border, like you're not chopping off their face, things that someone's gonna be inspired by. So, but when we do before and after pictures, or even the lifestyle stuff, like if it's like my life was burnout here and now it's super fun and full of freedom, we're still going left to right, the way you would tell the story. So that's tip number 2. And then the third is like, whatever you talk about, you're gonna attract in, right? I mean, like finds like. So I don't really watch like Southern, cooking shows. I don't follow those people on Instagram because I'm really not interested in cooking food like that. So I follow like some foodies that are into whole foods and eat things like kale and bone broth because I'm into that. So, I mean, you have to just understand a little bit of like who you're speaking to. But specifically what I want to talk about is we're all really good, especially at the beginning, about talking about the products. We all can do a great product post and talk about the shake, talk about a cleanse day, talk about a bar, talk about a nice delay, talk about a seasonal. And then all of a sudden when we are like, I don't have any business builders. No one wants to sell isogenics, right? I just have all these customers. I'm like, well, when was the last time you put something up about the business, you know, publicly to people? And they're like, oh, I'm like, your customers who came for banana bread seasonal shake are not necessarily your distributors. They're just making sure that we're congruent in who we want to attract. So just kind of bird's eye overview of where we're going to go. I wanted to put that out there. So then I have 5 things for you, for those of you that are note takers, that I really want to focus on. One is this idea about positivity. I'll go into depth on this. The second is consistency. The third is your brand and your avatar and like your key 5, which we'll go into. The fourth, which Laura is going to do, is about like new people getting a post up. What do they say? What do we do? How do we get other people to do this? What do we do after they're commenting and liking on it? And then if there's time at the end, we'll just do a little bit of Q&A. So hi, Cindy, how are you? You're here just in time. We're doing a little bit of an overview. You can catch the first 10 minutes of the recording afterwards. But we're just about to dive into the kind of bullet points of this. So perfect timing. So with positivity, this is bullet point number 1. Nobody wants to be around a negative Nancy, right? Like nobody wants to be a Debbie Downer, and they're surely not opening up social media to listen to people who are bitching and complaining. So I need to like rewind that I've been doing Isogenics for 7 years. I've been doing personal branding and growing my own business for about 15 years through social media. And I've always held myself to this standard and encouraged other people to do the same, not just in 2020. So I know we're in like political hell right now and like our world is just upside down, but I would have encouraged people to do this even before this, okay? And so I used to make jokes, if you ever go back and listen to old trainings, I'm like, if your like baby has a blowout all over you and you're late to work and you got a flat tire, like if you can't put humor into it, people really just don't care. Like that's like social media is not the avenue for you to like emotionally vomit your bad day on. I also want you guys to remember that no matter if they're Republican or they're Democrat, they can eat shakes. So you have to be really careful of where you're branding yourself, because I don't want to lose a potential customer because we might be voting differently next week, right? You want to be the energy that you're trying to attract. So if you show up negative, dark, unhappy, complaining, guess what you're going to find? And then you're going to have this annoying group of team that you're dragging because they're negative and they're unhappy and they're not fun and no one wants to be around them. And so when you're creating your posts, right, like first of all, just say like, how does this make someone feel, right? That would be the question I would want you to ask around it. Because that will make you right away like, ooh, this is going to make someone feel good, or like, this is probably not going to make someone feel good. And the second piece of this is, what's the value I'm offering? Who is this helping? I agree. Laura just said in here, there's a difference between vulnerability and negativity. There's a huge thing there. Vulnerability, where you open up your heart, people can relate to you, especially if you're giving them action or you're sharing how you've overcome it. For sure, that's amazing. But just going on there and like bitching and complaining, you know, like I hate my boss, or you're dropping F-bombs and things like that, that's what we're talking about. So then what I was just saying is, how does it make you feel? And then what's the value? Who is this helping? Like, we are inundated with notifications. We're inundated with posts. We're inundated with so much information today that we don't want to just be posting just to be posting, right? And we don't want to just be posting if someone else isn't going to appreciate what's there. So there are certain things you'll see here in a little bit when we get into your avatar, but like if Laura posts something about her puppies, right? It's immediately like, how does it make someone feel? It makes people feel good. Everybody loves puppies, right? We will all stop to scroll for a puppy. It's like, oh, they're cute, they're cuddling, you know? And then like, is there value in that? Well, I mean, you're not like teaching them something, but it's good. People get on social media to unplug, to turn off the news, to get away from their boss. Like, that's a great type of post, you know? If you're constantly doing the same things and it's like all about me, look at me, like I'm so awesome, people are like, I don't really care, right? Like, I'm not really interested in that. When we post a recipe, right? Like, how does it make people feel? Maybe inspired, right? Maybe a little bit creative, maybe a little bit hungry, like, who knows, right? They get something. Is there value? Yes, it saved them having to scroll through Epicurious and Bon Appetit and all these recipes to find a fall recipe. They can just grab yours. So when you're posting, in addition to just keeping it lighthearted, keeping it upbeat, just ask yourself those two questions. How does it make people feel? And is there value behind it? And if it's going to make someone feel like poop and there's not value, don't post it, right? I think sometimes we used to really advocate how often we were posting, like 3 to 4 times a day, that it's better to post less and have really good content than to be consistently blowing up your wall when no one really gives a crap, okay? So that leads me into bullet point number 2, which is consistency. Now, consistency doesn't mean you post 8 times a day. Consistency means that if you meet someone out and they go look you up, right? Because people go to people's social media today more than they do a website. Are you consistent with the things you're talking about, right? Do you have a brand? Are you credible? So when, before COVID, I used to get in Ubers intentionally to go all around town, no matter what errands I was doing, because I was prospecting every single one of them. So I would get in an Uber to go to my yoga class. I would get in an Uber to go to Whole Foods, and I would be talking to them. And I was like, hey, I'd love to talk to you about what I do. We would exchange information. If they looked me up, right, they connected with them on Facebook, if they went to my wall and I talked about a before and after picture or like a cleanse, like once 2 months ago, and then my whole wall is about like me and Ryan and all these things that are unrelated, they're like, what? Like, they don't trust you. Like, you have no, you're not reputable in the industry. So the consistency is like, if someone goes on your wall, like, have you had the lights on your virtual wellness store about transformation, about the opportunity, about the products, about the lifestyle, just about who you are, so they understand that this is a valid business, a valid opportunity, and remembering that people buy things from people they know, like, and trust. So they have to be able to get to know you, they have to be able to like you, and they have to be able to trust you. So there are people, you guys, in our business that are active, but they don't post. Laura will tell you this too. They reach out to us because we're so consistent. And they're like, hey, I don't think my sponsor is doing this anymore. Can you help me? And it's like, oh, your sponsor is definitely doing this, and we have to kind of reroute it back because we have integrity, but it's like their own customers don't even know that they're doing this because they've kind of checked out. Like, how are prospects going to know what you're doing, And so you can't post like, here's a seasonal shake this week and not post for a month and then all of a sudden post again, because there's no trust in that. I mean, I don't like to make the analogies to commercials, but think about how much money goes in to Pizza Hut commercials, Taco Bell commercials, all these things, because they want it to be on the forefront of your mind when you're hungry and you're watching TV, that's where you go. And so in addition to keeping it light, right, and being upbeat and always positive, not a negative Nancy, you have to be consistent. I know it's unrealistic for a lot of people to post 3 times a day, 7 days a week. And I'm not sure you necessarily have to, but at least daily that you are in people's feeds, and which is now going to lead me into bullet point number 3. Hi, Miss Sherry, which is your brand, your avatar. And I recently was on a training that I loved, and I've heard this done before, but I really love the simplicity behind it. That was like, she called it the JK5. Her name was Jenna Canner. I can't remember her last name, to be honest. Jenna something. She's like, has the podcast, The Goal Getter. Goal Digger, Goal Getter podcast. She was amazing. But this is where this is coming from. And she was talking about, it was the JK5, because that was her brand. But what are the 5 things you're always posting about? And you guys might not know the answer to this right now, but I want you to spend some time. And it doesn't mean like Monday has to be, the first thing you post about, Tuesday has to be the second thing you post about, right? But in a week, is there consistency of the 5 things you post about? So when she was getting her business started, like, one of the things she posted about was leadership and business development, right? One of the things that she talked about was motherhood and her infertility struggles, okay? Because she was connecting with people in that area. It's like, what are the 5 things that you post about? And again, you're always going to go back to like, how does this make them feel? And is there value behind it? So if I were to think about Laura's right now, and she could tell you what they were, but I would just like speculate on how well I know her and how long we've been friends on Facebook and the things that she does. Like, one of the things she posts about is health and wellness, right? So whether she's talking about the product, she's talking about recipes, she's talking about transformations, like, health and wellness is consistent in her 5 things. All right, I would say her pets. Like without question, you're going to see a picture of Leroy or Oliver, you know, sometime throughout the week, right? So pets, I would say. 3, her family. She's going to talk about her husband. She's going to talk about her kids, you know. Number 4 is her faith. You're going to see a Jesus, like kind of joke. You're going to see a faith thing. You're going to see something about a holiday. You're going to know that like she's there. And then you're probably going to see her talk about like network marketing as an industry or being an entrepreneur or some type of business, some type of leadership development, right? I'm just speculating. And if I ask Laura what her 5 things are, I'm not sure that those are exactly them, but I can guess because I know her like in the wheelhouse of where those are. So here's another person that you guys know so well that I'll break it down the example, right? Keisa Maxwell. She's going to talk about tacos more than just on Tuesdays, right? She's got this thing about it. People think it's funny. They can rely on her for like the funny jokes, you know? So they look forward to her taco recipes, her taco posts, her taco memes. Like that is something she's going to talk about, right? Then, you know, she's going to talk about health and wellness. She's going to talk about the products. But here's what Keisa does really well, not just with Isogenics. And here's where there's value to other people. She'll talk about other things that she likes or finds. So if you follow her, like recently she was talking about these jicama wraps. They're like a low carb taco shell, right? So there's congruency here, but it's in that health and wellness brand, but it's not always like buy me, sell from me, sell me, you know, type of thing. Health and wellness. For sure, her family. She's talking about her daughter. She's talking about her bonus kids. She's talking about her fiance. She's talking about her parents. Like you see how important family is to her. Faith is also in there. And you see a lot of motivation stuff, a lot of mindset, a lot of personal growth, a lot of personal development. So I don't think that she goes, okay, well, Tuesdays have to be tacos and Wednesdays have to be family. But if you went to, you know, her Instagram and you looked at the most recent 12 or 16 tiles, you should be able to see those things right there, right? Or you should be able to look at it and say, oh, this is this person's brand. This is what this person talks about, because it makes people trust you. If you're all over the place and there's no consistency and there's no message, first of all, if you market to no one or market to everyone, you market to no one. Remember that. Like you want to dial in your niche. You want to know who you're kind of speaking to, but people don't know what you do. And so I'm actually trying to like redefine mine, and I'll just be really honest and open with you guys, because I think mine was really confusing. I'm like, is she a speaker? Is she an author? Is she in network marketing? Is she a nutritionist? Like, is she like, who is this chick? Like, it's overwhelming for people. And so I'm actually working with someone trying to improve mine. And so I'll go back to the beginning, like, I'm not an expert, but if I know that social media is an untapped market, you know what I mean? It's an unlimited amount of people that you can reach out to and connect with. You have to make sure you know who you're attracting in and vice versa, right? Like who you're really trying to speak into and who you can help. So that would be number 3. And I'm going to turn it over to Laura, and then we can probably dive into some Q&A here. And she was going to talk about actually, I wanted to say one other thing. I'm sorry. And then we'll go to the 4th bullet for her. Understand that the platforms, the different social media are not the same. So what you might do on Instagram and what you might do on Facebook and what you might do on Pinterest or you might do on LinkedIn are totally different. I personally suggest you do 1 or 2 of them extraordinarily well, then 5 of them poorly, okay? So LinkedIn, which is going to have a much more business feel, that's not necessarily the place you want to be educating people about products, but to have something about the business, like be posting stats about how many people want to work from home, how many women have been laid off, you know, like how successful women in network marketing are, you know, that women that make 6 figures and above, 80% are in network marketing. Like educate people, create articles, make this a business platform. Or Instagram, it's all photos. That has to be where you put in the effort to lighten your photos, to have a brand that is aesthetically appealing. And if that's not something you want to spend time on, then don't feel like that's something you need to be doing, you know? In your stories, things that like where people are watching you and they're like, ooh, like I'm curious what Cindy does all day long is different than your brand of like what's posted on those tiles. And then also Facebook. I mean, Facebook is changing all the time, and the way that we can communicate in the groups, we can communicate in the messengers, and you can be silly and you can post more often, but people are still not there to buy things. You know, you don't want someone to go to your wall and be like, oh my gosh, every day she posts, all she's doing is selling me things and links to your website and discounts on this. And we've all been turned off by that, by some type of network marketing company, that we just want to make sure that like we're making people feel good, right? Like the value is there, but they should look different. Like if someone goes to your Instagram and they go to your Facebook, they should look different. If someone goes to your LinkedIn, they should look different. You don't need to post. Now there is some crossover. I'm not going to tell you that there's not. But you don't want to post the exact same thing every single day on 4 platforms, because then you have people following you on all of them, and they're just going to get exhausted because you're not offering them anything new. And they have to read the same crap and see the same picture in 4 different places, okay? So I am going to turn it over to Laura, and she's going to talk to you guys about how to get your first power post up as a new builder, and what to do with that, how to follow up with people, and then also how to teach your team to do this.
Hey, you guys. So I know just looking around, everybody's in a little bit different place with their businesses. So I'm going to bear that in mind. But I think the first question is, when you got started on Isogenics, you may or may not have jumped in thinking that, wow, this is going to be an amazing business opportunity, but you felt really good. And then whoever got you started said, hey, why don't you share that on social media? How many of you had that happen? You should share that on social media. Hand would be good. Let me see your hands. Come on, exercise. Woo! Okay, good. So we put up that initial power post, right? Where we talk about, before Isogenics, I felt this way, and I watched my friend Lauren have this incredible transformation, and I jumped in, and I'm so excited. Who wants to do this with me? Y'all did some version of that post? Okay. That is an amazing post for people who are just getting started and getting out there. If you needed that script, would you know where to go to get it? Okay, cool. One of the things I figured. So not only did you have a leader help you get that post up, but now you guys are all leaders, right? You are all leaders. You've all enrolled at least one person. So you are officially leaders. So we need to know how to show other people to do exactly the same thing. And I think Lauren is posting. Yes, she's amazing. Okay, so she's already got the link in there. So now save that link, because as a leader, you want to be able to show your people how to do exactly the same thing, right? That's how we duplicate this business and we grow. And that was one of the things when Lauren said, hey, I'm going to be talking about social media. You know, what do you think is important to cover? And I think it is important to know what to post out there, but I also think knowing what that power post is, knowing where to find it, and being able to show your people how to do exactly the same thing is really the key for you guys as leaders. So there it is. I always tell people when I share that with them, you know, that's a script. Please make it sound more like you. So if there's words in there that you don't use, but different words, help them put their personality on that post. And I always say add a picture as well, right? People like pictures. They don't like tons of words, but they like a picture. So that was really, Lauren, the biggest thing that I thought would be important to share with everyone is that power post, where to find it, how to show your people. And then what do we do once the power post goes up, right? So we help people get it up, and then everybody goes, oh, people are responding. What do I do? Right? Who felt that way when they put their power post up and people started asking questions? Were you like, holy cow, what do I do now? No, you all knew. Perfect. That's awesome. Then I'm done, Lauren. Everybody knew what to do. That's so cool. They can all help their people do the same thing. So that's awesome. ATMs are usually the next best step, right? We all know ATMs, add tag message, the acronym. So when people are commenting on that power post, you as the leader want to be following the post along with your new person, right? And seeing who's commenting, who's asking questions, so you can give them direction, right? To respond to them, find out their goals, get them added into the preview page, get a group message started with you as the leader to help them, make sure we tag them in some things. So that was really the things, Lauren, that I thought were kind of key as well on this whole social media thing. So cool.
Totally, and that's awesome. And you guys are really skilled, but I want to actually elaborate either with Laura or just with me before we sign off and do the Q&A, because there's going to be people who are watching this and recorded that maybe didn't get what you guys got, and you guys had great training either through Rachel or through Sherry or through Laura or from somebody. But basically, the training is not ours. It's me we learned on, and Zach and Eden Slobin have been training the company on this for, you know, nearly a decade. But the website is oureasytraining.com. So they have a great website, oureasysystem.com, which is like for people who are like customers and they're just looking at the products, and it shows like Isagenix accolades and videos. It's similar to the step one of our team website, but they're oureasytraining.com, which is their business website. It's similar to like our kind of step four on our team website. One of the things there is like the social media post. And if you guys click on this link, I put it in there, or email it to yourself, save it somewhere. There's a little video that kind of talks to them about what to do, but then there's different scripts, and it's done well with neuro-linguistic psychology and just really thought out on what you post if you're brand new, right? If you are starting up again, if you've been doing it for a while, because let's say like I got Cindy started and she was like, oh my gosh, please don't tag me, please don't post. I don't want to sell anything. I just want to use the products. And 4 or 5 months later, and she's had this like incredible transformation, and her husband was just laid off, and now she wants to blow up this business or something, right? I'm just creating a total false story. But like if all of a sudden she says, okay, I'm ready to go, the post that she's going to put up when she's been using the products for 4 or 5 months is different than someone who hasn't even gotten their box yet. So I want you guys to click on that and see the verbiage, because you have to know this not just for yourself, but for your team as well. So if, I've got a person who's been a customer for 4 or 5 months, 1 or 2 years that's ready to share, it's different verbiage. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, Lisa, like, I'm so excited to help you get your products paid for before your box even arrives. Like there's a different script. So that's the first thing. The second is then what do you do? So when people are like, well, how much is it? Or tell me more about it. Or what are you up to? And there's instructions right there on how to get it offline, right? Like how to message them, and then how to loop an expert in. And here's the thing, you guys are all experts and you are all leaders, and you're like, oh, I know what to do and I know how to do this. Your brand new people don't. So if I have a brand new girl and I'm like, hey, put this up, and 18 people are like, yeah, I'm interested. I want to do a 30-day cleanse and reset, or, I'm ready to do the challenge or something of that sort. Then she's like, what do I do? All these people are interested. She doesn't know the next step. And so using this website and using those step-by-step directions of how to say, oh yeah, Laura, I'll DM you. Barbara, I'm going to write you. Evelyn, I'm going to message you right now. And then what to send in the message, and even how to just get it onto a call, because brand new people don't know how to overcome objections. So when they start asking questions on like, well, how much is it? Or, is it this, is it that? Like the new person isn't prepared for that, and they're going to lose people who are interested if they don't have the support. And so if we can teach people systems, right? We can teach people what duplicates. Everybody doesn't have to be an expert. They just have to know where to get the information. We're going to have a lot more growth. And so I would encourage you guys, go in this. And if you've never used some of the posts, do it. Put one up right now and see what happens. It's great verbiage. Or some of your new customers, ask them what to do, but teach them, prep them for the next steps, because people always respond to them, right? And then like they freeze, and it's like a deer in headlights because they don't know what the next steps are. And this website is done so perfectly. So just to kind of recap a little bit, for anyone who listens to this in recorded time, or for you guys for being on here, while like I surely am not an expert and I don't want to be known as a social media expert, I have built my businesses, all of them, through social media. I mean, like 80 and 90% of all of my customers through Isagenix, so much of what I did was Fuel for Life has all come from social media. And so it's worth it for you to put in the work. Listen to other podcasts, get an Instagram for Dummies book, something that says, okay, I'm going to put myself in a little bit of school to get better at this because I'm committed to growing my business. Instead of being overwhelmed by some of the apps, and I've been there, like I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this Canva thing now? And I'm like, okay. And then I have to just pause, take a deep breath, go through. And once you kind of figure it out, you're like, oh, it wasn't that bad. Be willing to learn Lightroom, be willing to learn Lensa, be willing to learn Canva, right? Something that's really going to propel your business forward. Always make sure the picture is pretty. Like when you take a selfie or you do something, just kind of go like this until you find the light and you're like, oh, look how much better that picture looks. Like we don't want to put things up that are grimy. We don't want to put things up that are blurry. Like, if you're building $1 billion business and you want to have classy photos, you know what I mean? And I don't mean that we all have $1 billion businesses. We brand ourselves with Isagenix, who is $1 billion business. But, if you're growing this legacy and you want to look great and not just like some, schlum off the side of the road, like take 30 seconds and just be like, oh, where's the light better in this room? Because it's naturally going to stop the scroll if the photo's light and airy instead of dark and gloomy and fuzzy and blurry. You know, when you're doing your before and afters, go left to right. Like, that's how we read. That's where our brains are. We just want to make sure that we're branding ourselves that way, and just be really consistent with your product posts, with your business posts, and understanding that if you're just talking about the products, you're not going to find a lot of builders, you know, and if you're only talking about the builders, you're going to lose out on product, you know, people. Like, you kind of have to incorporate them all. And so the main things that we talked about today was always being positive. How does make people feel? What's the value they have? Being absolutely consistent, keeping the lights on in your store, knowing your brand, knowing your avatar. Who are the 5 things that define you? What are the 5 things that excite you? What are the 5 things people can really rely on for you to educate them on, for you to add value to, for you to lift their spirits up about? And then when you do the new post, what do you say, and how do you get it offline, and how do we teach our teams to duplicate this? So if you have new customers right now who have never put up a power post, your immediate homework is to go, hey, I know you recently got started with me. There is an amazing social media post that really invites people to take a look at what we're doing. It not only pays these products forward, but it helps you get your products paid for. If I sent you the script, would you be willing to put it up? Right? Half the time people don't do it because they don't know what to say. But if you literally can just send it to them and then walk them through the next steps, they'll do it. You know, like, we have this amazing seasonal, you know, shake release. Like, I want to help as many people as I can. Would you be willing to just put this post up if I send it to you exactly what it looks like? And then you copy and paste and send it to them, you know? So I'm appreciative for you guys being on here. If there's any questions, I'm happy to stay on. And if not, next week is our last week all on ATMs and 3-way calls.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you guys. Go sell some banana bread shakes. Bye guys.